Hello and welcome to my September 2022 bullet journal setup. It feels like just a few days ago I was setting up my August bullet journal. I can't believe how quickly this year is flying by. Since it's so close to the end of summer, I really wanted to go all out with this month's theme and include a lot of sweet desserts and cafes and little pink flowers everywhere. So I decided to go with the theme The Frog Prince or The Princess and the Frog for this month's setup. All of my drawings were pretty loose interpretations of the story, but I still really like how the setup turned out. So over here, I'm just going to start by sketching out a simple outline of a cafe or a little sweet shop, and this is just going to take place in the middle of the page so that I can add some more details around it later on. I was inspired by Tiana's Place, the restaurant owned by Tiana in The Princess and the Frog, but I wanted to give it a little twist since I do have a bit of a soft spot for pastries and all things pink, so I chose to go the dessert route and turn it into a little mini cafe. After drawing the awning, I'm just writing September near the top where the sign should be, and then using my pencil to add a few clusters of small flowers. Now I'm going to get started with the colors, so I'm first going to fill in the flowers on the letters, so I'm using light pink to dot around the lines, followed by some green for the leaves. Then I'm using this light beige color for the base of the storefront, and I'm just laying a soft layer of this down to create a sort of undertone for the rest of the colors. After that, I'm using some plum, peach, and pink to brighten up the walls, awning, and just overall give it that fresh, fruity color palette. For the awning, I'm using a soft mauve to fill in the fabric, and I'm mostly concentrating the color on the bottom section since I want it to look like the light is hitting on top. This will also help make the illustration a bit more realistic. I'm essentially doing the same thing for the cart below, which is being bathed in some more light purple along with some brown and beige. I also decided to write a small 2022 for the sign on the bottom. Moving on to the flowers, I'm first coating everything a pale yellow to sort of map out roughly where the flowers will go and how they will all look like. Then I'm going over the first layer with some more pink to give them a more defined shape and depth. Going into this, I wasn't quite sure which colors I was going to use or even how many different colors I wanted to use, but I eventually decided to just stick to a warm palette of pinks, oranges, corals, peaches, and a hint of yellow peeking through the crevices. Once I have all the flowers colored in, I'm just going to cut the middle part of this page out so that I can start working on the page behind it. I love making these little cutouts to create an almost sculpted effect, or just add a bit of an interactive element to my journal by having to flip through each page to truly unearth all of the little details in the drawings. Anyway, now that I'm on the second page, I'm just sketching out the actual windows and doors in this cafe. So I'm mapping out a large window in the space behind the cart along with a door near the left side. Now I'm using the same mauve color to fill in all of the line work in between the windows and the entryway. I'm also filling in the door with some brown to give some contrast and to separate it from the rest of the page. Finally, with everything all colored in, I'm also going to be cutting this page out, so I'm snipping away the windows and I'm cutting 3 out of the 4 sides on the door so that you can open and close it as you would with a real one. For the final page of these cutouts, I'm going to draw the interior of the cafe, So I'm loosely sketching out the front desk along with this big glass casing, which is going to be filled with shelves of cupcakes and assorted pastries. Behind everything, there's also this tall shelf with rounded edges to shelve other items and desserts. And now comes the fun part, drawing all of the tiny desserts. I have cakes of all flavors, chocolate, coffee, vanilla, cupcakes with sprinkled toppings, pies, brownies, tarts, custards, and iced cookies. I also added a few wine bottles on the shelves, along with a couple jars filled with whatever you imagine: lemon drops, gobstoppers, bonbons, gummies, chocolate buttons. And in the end, I also went back in and added a few extra shelves on the side since it was looking a bit hungry for decoration. So I just filled those shelves with some extra little cupcakes. And in terms of coloring, I think I kept it pretty simple. I didn't add too many layers as I wanted it to be very bright and vivid, so I just stuck to various browns, including cinnamon, mocha, walnut, syrup, and gingerbread for the chocolate, and then pinks, purples, apricots, oranges, and yellows for the icing. I tried to make everything bright and cheery, but still match the color palette so that it will look nice with the exterior of the cafe when we flip back to the first page. Now let's move on to my quote page. So over here, I just wrote September 2022 in the center of the page, followed by the quote, "The only way to get what you want in this world is through hard work." Underneath that, I'm drawing this mini strawberry shortcake, and so I started off with an ellipse up top and slowly moved down toward the bottom, adding some strawberries and layers of cake along the way. For the color palette, I really wanted it to complement the cafe I drew on the right with all of its flowers and bright desserts, so I went with this bright red for the strawberries, making sure to layer with some lighter layers of orange, while the cake itself is this light brown and beige. And then once I finished my quote page, I just decided to quickly outline September on the cafe sign, so I went in with a pen and just traced the pencil lines in order to make it stand out more. Now that we are finally done with the cover page, I'm going to move on to my August calendar spread. Here, I just filled in all of the lines and dates to create my calendar, leaving a little strip on the right page blank so that I can add a small drawing. I decided to draw a few macarons all stacked one over the other and tied off with a ribbon. I think this ties into the cafe/bakery theme, and I was very excited because I think the colors will match well with the previous two pages. After getting all of the macarons outlined, I'm going to start off with a light base of beige to give some initial color to the shells and cream. For the macaron on the bottom, I decided to color it purple, so I guess we can say it's lavender flavored, or maybe Earl Grey or Ube. And then I'm coloring the one above a mix of pink and orange, and I'll say it's rose or strawberry flavored. And as for the macaron on top, I had to include a coffee flavored one, so I'll say this is a coffee / chocolate because I really can't decide. And finally, I'm coloring the one below it pink as well, but just a touch darker, so maybe this one can be raspberry. And lastly, I'm using this soft plum color to fill in the ribbon, and I'm just making sure to add shadows in some areas to add a layer of realism. Flipping over to the next page, this is going to be my book tracker and my habit tracker. I actually found myself using my habit tracker a lot this month, and it has actually really helped me to maintain some of these habits, so I decided to continue using it this month. So I've just skipped over a page, and this will ensure that when I cut this page out, it won't interfere with the previous spreads. I don't think I'm doing a very good job at explaining, but hopefully watching me do it will help. And for this page, I decided to draw some simple flowers just because I was running a bit low on time and I wanted something that could align well with the color palette. In terms of the colors, I just filled in the flowers with some beige, light pink, red, and some brown at the end to darken the edges. For the leaves, I used a few shades of green, each a tiny bit darker than the last, and I tried to leave most of the tips lighter and the stems darker. I also went over everything with some brown to add a more earthy tone and to sort of dim the brightness of the green. Finally, once everything is all colored, I'm just going to cut the flowers out so that I'm left with this little flap over these two pages. Here, I'm going to go over the trackers and the headings with a pen to make it easier to see. So on the right side, I just have some habits that I want to track, and I've decided to keep the same ones as last month. So I have sleeping, reading, hydrating, poetry, journaling, YouTube, writing, and studying. then on the left side I have my book tracker, and I just made some columns for the title of the book, the author, the date, and the rating. Now that everything is outlined, I'm finally going to move on to my weekly spreads. For my weeklies, as some of you may already know, I've been creating a few of these Dutch doors layered one over the other so that they form a sort of mini booklet which I use for each week. I really love having my weeklies arranged like this because it makes it so much easier to find, and it's almost like a separate little journal. So on the bottom right corner, I've marked down this line that I'm going to be cutting out, and then on the side, I will be creating a few drawings that will stick out when the pages are cut, almost like little bookmarks. So I'm starting off by drawing this eclair with strawberries and cream in the top right corner. Moving on to the page underneath this, I'm going to start by sketching out another eclair, this time with little shells and curls of chocolate for the topping. I basically repeated the same process for the colors, so I used brown and beige for the base, followed by some darker brown for the chocolate. I did go over the top part several times just to give it that creamy, luxurious texture. After I finish coloring everything, let's move on to the final page of my weekly spreads. And here I'm just going to draw the final eclair near the bottom right corner, and this one is going to have chocolate cream and some raspberries on top. And in terms of coloring, I just did the same thing as before, and I use the same colors for the base of the eclair to ensure that they all look cohesive when everything is placed together. And I will be leaving this page uncut since it's the last of my weeklies. So flipping back to the previous couple of pages, I'm just writing down the days of the week from Monday to Sunday, and then on the final page, I'm going to turn it into a notes/to-do list spread. I also went back in with the pen to write down the date below each day of the week. Here is the final flip through. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful September.